It's now my delight and pleasure to introduce Dr. Shoukri, the President and Vice-Chancellor of York University. Following Dr. Shoukri's career at McMaster that concluded with 6 years as their VP of both Research and International Affairs, he was chosen to lead York University, whose president he has been since 2007. To those of you who follow university life, you know that leading York is the Mount Everest of the Canadian Academy, or perhaps, as he might have seen it on many days, the Mount Krakatoa, sitting on top of a rumbling volcano. It's an exceedingly tough job, and it has defeated lesser leaders. It is an enormous school with a uniquely wide spectrum of students by aspiration, background, and ethnicity. For nearly 6 years, he has juggled the inherited conflicts with skill, transformed York's profile, launched and overseen massive fundraising and capital projects, given his university community a new pride and a new conviction in their ability to compete at the top of their class internationally. It is a tremendous achievement. Mamdouh is a genuine scholar as well. Let me merely cite his academic specialty, and I'm sure I'll stumble as I try to get through this. He is a recognized global expert in multi-phase heat transfer, issues of nuclear reactor thermodynamics within the field of thermofluid sciences. Got that? Anybody want to repeat that? He's also a committed community leader, having served on the boards of agencies from Cancer Care Ontario to the Canadian Merit Scholarship Foundation, and too many provincial and academic governing bodies to list. Dr. Shoukri believes deeply that Canada's universities have a huge contribution to make to the world, and in securing their role as global competitors, providing Canada with a more competitive foundation in that world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce to you my friend Mamdouh Shoukri.
Well, thank you very much, Robin, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here at the Empire Club, and I can say to you that I am absolutely humbled by seeing so many distinguished people here in this room today. I can't say enough thank you all for being here. Well, since I'm expected to speak about international education and internationalization of university, I would be remiss if I didn't start by talking about my own journey to Canada, from international students to proud Canadian citizen. 40-some odd years ago, my wife Susan and I arrived in Canada with a dream. We left our homeland of Egypt and everything that we had come to know and love in order to further pursue graduate education in Canada. Speaking for myself, I was anxious, excited, and nervous about experiencing a new life, away from family and friends, my usual comforting network. Like many international students, I remember when I arrived, there were many new things to me. I knew nothing about ice hockey and baseball. I played soccer and I played squash. But early on, Susan and I recognized that if we were going to succeed, we couldn't just focus on our academic studies. It was also important for us to engage in society. We were so enamored by this new way of life, the democracy, the multiculturalism, the country as a whole, that we decided to stay. In learning about the country, what I found of particular interest to me was Canada's history and its evolution into the country that it is today. When one looks at Canada's evolution, it becomes obvious that this country has maintained a high level of prosperity through hard work of earlier generations and the abundance of natural resources with which Canada is blessed. However, for the last couple of decades, the world has changed, as has Canada's ability to compete. The global economy is being driven primarily by knowledge and the opportunity to transfer knowledge into services and products. Canada's ability to maintain current prosperity and competitiveness is closely linked to the nation's capacity to build a leading knowledge-based economy. That's not to say that we are no longer a resource-rich country and that we should disregard our strengths and resources. But if we are to continue to compete, then we need to make a transition and become a leader in the world of knowledge. This incredible transformation of the world economy, which I believe will continue for years to come, is having a significant impact on the education system in two ways. First, the new economy is driven by knowledge and is driven by knowledge workers. This, in turn, is creating a world competition for knowledge workers, as well as an unprecedented demand for young people wanting to pursue post-secondary education. As a result, this trend is creating opportunities and challenges for post-secondary education worldwide. The second item has to do with the fact that global economies and markets have become interconnected and indeed integrated, resulting in international partnerships and networks becoming central to future prosperity. This necessitated the need for future knowledge workers to be educated in a global context, thus driving internationalization of universities. For the Canadian education systems, particularly Canadian universities and Canadian colleges, these developments have created both challenges and opportunities. Let me start with the challenge. We have to re-examine our offerings to ensure that our education system is capable of preparing the future knowledge workers so that academically they have the necessary technical knowledge while being socially and culturally able to function in such an interconnected world. In fact, for a number of years, Canadian universities and colleges have recognized the need to prepare students for a world that is undergoing a continuing process of integration and globalization. So as a president of York University, I can tell you that education must prepare future citizens to think in both a global and a differential context, while being culturally able to work within the complexity of a global context. This has been reflected in a growing activities in internationalization of curricula, student mobility, language instructions, international collaborative agreements involving student exchange and joint research, and even joint degree offerings with universities worldwide. I believe the internationalization of Canadian colleges and universities is continuing in all aspects of university life. More importantly, it is being driven by an obvious demand from students, as well as the society's expectations from universities and colleges. This trend was recognized in a statement on internationalization that was recently issued by the Associations of Universities and Colleges of Canada, AUCC, for which I participated in drafting. And this, again, document basically reflects the aspirations of Canadian universities and colleges for internationalization. Of course, as I mentioned, with challenges come opportunities. The opportunity is that international education represents, in my view, a great opportunity for Canada and for Canadian institutions. In the last couple of decades, we have witnessed an incredible growth in the demand for post-secondary education worldwide as a result of the economic growth in the new economies. Emerging economies, particularly China, India, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, continue to grow at an incredible rate, creating tremendous demand and continuing demand for knowledge workers. And to this, add to this, actually, their demographics with younger population fueling an ever-growing need for post-secondary education opportunities. In these emerging economies, in spite of their best efforts to build new universities, enrollment demands continue to outstrip available places by a significant margin. Moreover, for young people in these emerging economies, studying in institutions in the developed world continues to represent an unmatched opportunity for learning and also for personal growth in a global context. A 2010 OECD report entitled Education at a Glance shows that the number of international students enrolled in universities outside their country of citizenship has risen from 1.7 million in 1995 to 3.5 million in 2008. Significant jump. In the longer term, I believe this trend will continue to be driven by the mismatch between local supply and ambitious demands, and the desire by young international students to gain world experience in highly reputed institutions. In fact, by 2025, it is estimated that the number of international students studying outside their country of citizenship will reach 8 million. The potential represents a great opportunity for Canada and for Canadian institutions. How do I see these opportunities? In the short term, international education represents a significant economic advantage for the host country. In a 2009 report entitled Economic Impact of International Education in Canada by Rosalind Coonan and Associates for DFATE, this is the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, it was estimated that in 2008, international students in Canada spent in excess of $6.5 billion in tuition, accommodation, and discretionary spending, created more than 83,000 jobs, and more than $291 million in government revenue. I should add that the expenditure by international students in Canada increased from $6.5 billion in 2008 to as high as $8 billion in 2010. Let me try and put this number in perspective. Can you believe that the total amount that's spent in Canada by international students is greater than our export of coniferous lumber, which was $5.1 billion in 2008, greater than our export of coal, which was $6.07 billion, or even helicopters and airplanes, which is $6.9 billion to all other countries. I found another interesting way of looking at the data, or when I read it, was really quite interesting, is to actually look at the value of educational services provided in Canada to international students. Using 2008, look at this expenditure and compare it to the total value of the total export of Canada to certain countries. This ratio for South Korea is 22.1%. That's to say, 22.1% of the value of the total Canadian export to South Korea was the expenditure of international students from Korea studying in Canada. This ratio was 14.3% for Saudi Arabia, 12.4% for China, 9.3% for India. In fact, if you look at that, to do the same exercise for the data on 2010, you'll find incredible rise for the numbers when it comes to India in particular, and to some extent Saudi Arabia. Additional economic impact is also achieved from the direct export of Canadian education services abroad. This is achieved through the growing presence of Canadian schools, colleges, and universities overseas. These institutions are offering Canadian programs, spreading Canadian values, and generating incredible goodwill towards Canada, as well as millions of dollars in revenue. Now, in the longer term, international education is playing and will continue to play a critical role in Canada's future competitiveness and prosperity. As I mentioned earlier, international exchanges, research partnerships, and international students' participation in our institutions prepares our young Canadian students with a tremendous opportunity to excel as future knowledge workers and provides them with the necessary world perspective essential to succeed in a globally interconnected environment. But moreover, training of international students greatly help Canada in dealing with worldwide competition for talent. Many studies have shown that the domestic talent pool that we have here in very key areas of specialization, such as science, math, technology, engineering, health, and so on, is not sufficient for our future prosperity and for future needs. In addition, our demographic pressures from an aging population compounds the problem. Currently, 75% of Canada's growth in workforce already comes from immigration. International students trained in Canada represent an excellent pool of highly qualified workers capable of meeting future labor market needs for an innovative, knowledge-based economy. International students choosing to stay in Canada will be able to address this talent shortage and integrate easily in Canadian society. Some may even end up becoming university presidents a few years later. Those choosing to return to their home countries will likely be great ambassadors for Canada, which in turn will support our efforts as a trading nation and build bridges and goodwill in other parts of the world. In this regard, it is necessary to acknowledge the alignment between the public policy objectives on immigration and labor markets needs and possible objectives of a new well-articulated national policy on international education. With that in mind, it is clear that international education is both a future economic growth sector and a critical sector in securing Canada's future needs for knowledge workers. Now, if that's the case, how well are we doing in attracting international students? At the outset, let me say that I sincerely believe Canada is totally blessed with outstanding universities and colleges. Academic excellence is uniformly acknowledged across the entire post-secondary education system in Canada. Canada is a peaceful country, a welcoming nation with almost no historic baggage in any part of the world. The multicultural nature of Canada is also a great asset in attracting foreign students. Having experienced that myself, I don't think anything has changed. We continue to be that. I truly believe Canada is an ideal destination for young, aspiring, globally driven university applicants. Unfortunately, I have to say our performance as a destination for international students does not reflect our true potential. When one looks at the top 5 countries in attracting international students, it doesn't surprise you that the countries, 3 countries like the USA, Britain, and France are 3 among the top 5 for obvious reasons of size and history. Interestingly enough, the other 2 are Germany and even Australia. Australia has been quite successful in attracting international students, having developed a national strategy on international education and a highly focused integrated recruitment effort. In 2008, foreign students represented 21% of the total enrollment in Australian universities. Until recently, but for a long time, Canadian universities recognized the values of international education in certain areas. As such, for decades, we have always been interested in attracting international talent in areas of research and graduate education, particularly in science and engineering. However, for the reasons I just discussed, the interest in international education has been growing for the last 2 decades across all universities and colleges in Canada. And that's really a very positive sign, in my opinion. It is also important to note that, as of late, other stakeholders, particularly governments, started to recognize the critical importance of international education and the recruitment of international talent. This is certainly reflected in a number of important studies and the reports that have been initiated by both levels of government. Let me refer to 2 very recent reports. The first was a 2011 report by our esteemed Dejo Horvath, the Dean of York's prestigious Schulich School of Business, which advised the Government of Ontario on ways to fulfill its strategic objective of increasing the enrollment of international students by 50% while maintaining space for Ontario students. The report acknowledges the critical importance of international recruitment to Ontario and the fierce global competition for talent. It also identifies current barriers for achieving the stated goal of the government and strategies for success. The other report was produced even more recently by my good friend Amit Chakma, the president of Western Ontario, University of Western Ontario, who was asked by DFATE to chair an advisory panel on Canada's international education strategy. Their report, which was just released last August, made some important revelations and recommendations. The report confirmed what many of us in the post-secondary education already know, that Canada has the opportunity and the capacity for strong growth in attracting international students. In their analysis, they claim that it is feasible to double the number of international students by 2022 while maintaining high-quality standards. They further recommended to actively seek cooperative arrangement to encourage Canadian students to spend time abroad, either in a study, an internship, or service learning experience. It is in this context that I would argue that Ontario is poised to be at the forefront to lead that growth. It is, in my opinion, a win-win-win situation. Enrich the lives of our students here in Canada, as well as the ones who come to study in Canada, create opportunities for global partnerships, all in the interest of future prosperity of Canadians. The recognition of the importance of internationalization for universities has been reflected in the strategic plans and policies of most Canadian colleges and universities in recent years. And perhaps more importantly, has been recently also reflected in some public policy. And let me give you an example of some government policies that are evolving in support of this. Back in 2007, the Government of Canada established an international education promotion initiative, Edu Canada, using DFATE's network of embassies and offices abroad to promote education in Canada and support recruitment efforts by interested Canadian universities. New initiatives by both levels of governments also resulted in the establishment of prestigious scholarships for foreign students and postdoctoral fellowships, like the Vanier Canada Graduate Scholarship, the Banting Postdoctoral Fellowships, and the Ontario Trillium Scholarships. Perhaps the most important federal policy change in support of the objectives of international education is the fact that foreign students now have the right to work while studying in Canada and for as long as 3 years afterwards, and for the first time can actually apply for permanent residency from within Canada. I believe this is a great step in aligning immigration policies with future needs of Canada. Now, before I talk about York University, as I'm sure you expect me to do that, and what we are doing about internationalization, I really feel obliged to make a brief comment on some of the potential risks associated with massive recruitment of international students in order to make sure that we actually achieve the right objectives. So briefly, let me say, firstly, it is important to insist on the highest quality of international students recruited to Canada in terms of academic standards, communication skills, and genuine intentions. Secondly, it is also equally important that our universities and colleges develop the infrastructure needed to give them the best potential for success in terms of counseling and opportunities for integration into Canadian society. I can tell you, and on that point, I was very fortunate as an international student to be mentored by some very thoughtful Canadian. Now, I can't finish my talk today without sharing with you York's active agenda in internationalization. I sincerely believe that York University is the leader among Canadian universities and colleges in internationalization. Internationalization is a core value at York and is identified in York's strategic plan. Our strategic commitment to internationalization reflects our belief that an international perspective will help us maintain academic excellence, prepare future citizens for a more complex and interconnected world, and ensure continuing prominence for Canada in the world. We know that if students are to succeed globally, they should not only become experts in their field of study, but also experience the world firsthand and develop a sense of shared citizenship. York offers the ideal environment for internationalization. We are one of Canada's largest and most multicultural universities, with a community that's more than 65,000 students, faculty, and staff who can trace their background to more than 170 countries worldwide. As such, we represent a welcoming environment for students coming from almost anywhere in the world. An advantage of being so large and so diverse is that York is able to offer an international curriculum that brings world perspective into the classroom. We have excellent student mobility programs, funded international internships, and we provide innovative international degrees that combine regular majors with language study and courses with international content. We offer these international degrees programs in which all students spend one semester attending a foreign university overseas in diverse fields of study like business, history, political science, and science, to name a few. We have more than 250 exchange programs with some of the major universities in the world for students and faculty exchanges and for joint research. For example, we recently joined the universities in Berlin, New York, and Toronto, offering students the opportunity to be part of a new international PhD program in a number of fields of study. The program provides students with an invaluable opportunity to gain experience outside their home institution. Our very successful bridging programs are designed to help internationally trained professionals to update their knowledge and be ready for the Canadian work environment. They are part of our commitment to helping newcomers succeed. We continue to receive funding to provide various bridging programs in different fields, including healthcare, business, and information technology. Our Faculty of Health is offering a new bachelor degree in global health, positioning our university as a leader in Canada and internationally in the rapidly evolving global health field. A key component of this program involves a connection with international partners for co-delivery of course material. We are also home to the only bilingual campus in Southern Ontario, Glendon College, which offers programs in both English and French, and more recently, Spanish. In fact, students can get a trilingual International Bachelor of Arts. Glendon has been a great magnet for international students and received an Internationalization Award from AUCC Scotiabank for its annual student-run international symposium. York's Schulich School of Business, ranked one of the world's top MBA programs, now has one of the best executive education programs for executives from around the world, including the USA, China, Russia, and Latin America. In addition, India remains a priority country for us, since they bring rich diversity to our campus and our classrooms. We are expanding in India. Our Schulich School of Business, which already offers its programs in Mumbai, is set to open a Hyderabad campus in the fall of 2013. Our Asian Business and Management Program provides training for Chinese and Vietnamese government officials. In fact, we are one of only 6 Canadian universities with a license to do this training. We also have coordinating offices in Beijing since 2003 and in Shanghai in 2006. In Southeast Asia, York was involved in the creation of a graduate management school that was a joint venture between Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, Kellogg Graduate School of Management, and the Wharton School in the US, and of course, our Schulich School of Business. We have increased, based on a strategic planning exercise, we have increased our international enrollment from 2,900 students in 08-09 to more than 4,000 in 2012-13. Significant increase just a few years, and we have a strategic plan to move that further. While we are experiencing such an increase in international enrollment, we are, as I said earlier, very mindful of ensuring that we offer them early opportunities for success by enhancing their language skills through our outstanding York University English Language Institute. This institute is central to our international recruitment effort. In fact, its success in preparing international students for study in Canadian universities has made it the destination of significant number of international students who are coming to study in Canada, whether they're coming to York or even to other universities, and we're very proud of that particular element of our programs. York is participating in the initiatives of Japan-Canada Academic Consortium, which is a binational group of universities formed to promote student exchange. A key activity is an annual Japan-Canada Forum that brings students from the 22 member institutions together for a week of activities focusing on a theme of interest to both countries. In fact, we're hosting this in our campus this year. We are reaching out to the world, creating more opportunity for globalization. I should add that York is an early signatory to the Magna, Charta, Observatory for Fundamental University Values and Rights, a nonprofit organization founded by the University of Bologna and the European Universities Association. We are reaching out to Brazil, and I see the Consul General here, nice to see you here. We are reaching out to Brazil. Our Schulich School of Business has been engaged in executive training for quite some time, and we have significant number of exchange agreements with leading universities in Brazil. Last April, I visited Brazil with a group of university presidents where we were able to build new relationships and secure Canada's participation in Brazil's national program, Science Without Borders. And I would like to say a few words about that to show in these developing economies what's happening. This is the program that Canada is participating in that is sponsored by the government of Brazil. It's called Science Without Borders. Under this program, Brazil, as an evolving and successful new economy, intends to send some 100,000 students, watch the number, 100,000 students to study abroad in science, technology, engineering, and math by 2015. Such a short period of time. 12,000 of these students are expected to come to Canada. This is a country with significant number of very strong institutions, but this is a great example for what I talked about, the mismatch between the supply and demand. The demand is growing so fast, and also there is huge recognition for the value of young people in this evolving economy to be part of a global network. I'm also pleased to announce that just yesterday, our Vice President of Research and Innovation was in India alongside Prime Minister Stephen Harper, signing an MOU with India's Prime Minister and members of India's Research Council. This agreement will stimulate research exchanges between York and several top Indian universities, including the very top Indian Institute of Technology and the Indian Institute of Sciences. In fact, I know that I can keep on talking about what we are doing in internationalization for a long time to come, but I assure you that this is just a small sample of what I can talk about. Again, at York, we are also committed to the success of our international students and to their integration in Canada. We offer services and programs to international students, such as funding for work and study positions, buddy programs to match international with domestic students, living in Canada talks on subjects such as banking, healthcare, dealing with social situations, career advice and academic advice by counselors with cross-cultural changing. So let me conclude. In conclusion, the imperative for Canada to compete in a global economy has gained momentum across all sectors over the last decade, with significant intensification in new world economies. The ability to successfully conduct business in Canada and internationally relies on a global worldview that is enabled through what I call the endless campus. It is clear that the internationalization of Canadian education and the workforce of tomorrow will be a defining factor of whether organizations succeed or fail. I submit to you that it will also be a key contributor to our economy and Canada's ability to compete. I call on my esteemed colleagues in the post-secondary education sector, government leaders, and private sector partners to adopt a common vision and collaborate to the fullest extent so that we capitalize on our collective momentum. Canada and future generations will be better off for it. As president of York University and as a former international student myself, I'm proud that our institution is totally committed to internationalizations, creating and developing the citizens of the world. Thank you.
We have time for, I think, 2 or 3 questions. There are microphones in the audience. Anne has one, and there's one over here. Dr. Shoukri, I think I'll let you choose who you'd like to take a question from.
Well, the good news is that I have so many members of the York team here, so
that's not fair.
I will answer the easy ones, and I will ask them to answer the difficult ones. So,
who has the first question? All right, well, let me start.
Okay.
Dr. Shoukri, if you could list 2 things that you would like to see from the Government of Ontario or the federal government that were essential to advancing the international education agenda you've outlined, what would they be?
Well, I know that, okay, let me tell you the one that comes to mind right away because it's real, and there are other university presidents and colleges are here. I'm sure they can contribute to this. What I try to describe is an incredible opportunities that we actually should seek. And we're not saying this, I'm not saying this because of a simple interest of York University or of Ryerson University or Seneca College or anybody in particular. This is, I believe, it's a national need. It's a country need. This is a great opportunity. It has immediate economic value, but most importantly, in my opinion, has a long-term implication in terms of our competition for the world competition for talent and about our students actually learning in an international context. What is between, and all universities have identified the need, and I see so many universities who are keen to participate. What is between us and doing this is simply infrastructure and the appropriate funding in order to do that. While our own operating budgets are suffering, we find it very difficult to find the appropriate funds to make the right investments that will make the difference. I know there's an image university president, they always have their hands extended for money, but this is a really true thing, that one has to be quite balanced in making an investment, looking at the needs for other aspects. It is of high priority, I believe, and I think government should step in. The second one is perhaps a more coordinated effort, which I see the beginning of that involves Canadian universities in terms of recruitment. And by recruitment, again, I alerted you earlier to my concern about if we jump too fast, we have to be very careful. Whom are we recruiting? Academic standing is very important, and the type of students we bring in is very important. So we need a coordinated effort that I think the government can help as a facilitator in that.
We have a question over here.
Yes. I just wanted to ask a question about the gap between opportunities and education. And first of all, you can confirm whether you think there's that gap, and second of all, what you think the role of universities are in York University with respect to it. And when you compare what it was like when you probably went out into the workforce after your education, and certainly for many of the people who are plus 50 in this group, what it was like, there were many, many opportunities. And for this group, which is in the 50 plus generally, when they have children in their 20s, my observation is that there does seem to be a gap between the well-educated workforce that we're creating, including international students, which I welcome. It's not a question suggesting we don't open our arms. But how can we create opportunities for all of those wonderfully gifted students that we're graduating? Because it doesn't seem to be being addressed by anyone in particular at this point.
Well, we are going through, of course, a part of our economic cycle where things have slowed down. But I believe that the highly educated workforce, highly educated population will create the economies that will make things move forward. I really believe that. I say to our students, so I think it really, which comes first? I think by having highly skilled, well-educated workforce or young people, they will create the opportunities for all of us. Of course, governments and the private sector have to make the investment to make that happen, but having them is in itself will create the opportunities. I said something the other day just on the spot. I may share it with you, to a group of young people on campus who said that, we have, the economy is such and such and so on. I said, listen, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a story, which is an absolutely true story. I'll share it with you. In the mid-'70s, as I was finishing my PhD, I remember many, many gatherings of graduate students. Remember, in the mid-'60s, there was the huge expansion of Canadian universities, and there were many jobs in the academy for professors and so on, where the subject of discussion seems to evolve around how unlucky we were. That's 75, 76. How unlucky we were. The earlier generation have had so many opportunities. There were so many jobs. And was how unlucky we are. Now, I go back in my memory and I think of that home and these people. All of them now have become presidents of companies and vice presidents of companies and so on and so forth. I am an optimist, and I don't apologize about that. I think we are part in a cycle that will come up, and I'm not saying that as an economist or anything, but I have seen it before. Things will come up, and I think the worst that we can do is not to prepare ourselves with having enough young people dedicated who are aspiring to use the opportunities. In some sense, they will use the opportunities as the opportunities arise, and in another sense, they will create the opportunities.
On that cheerful note.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I call on Kudumal Kurian to offer the appreciation for our speaker?
Hello, good afternoon. Distinguished guests at the head table, members of the board of York University and friends of York University, and ladies and gentlemen. We were wondering who should be saying this thank you, and my husband Joseph thought, being a recent retiree from the board of York University, maybe I should be doing this job. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming to hear Dr. Shoukri. Mr. President, this was a topic of great interest to not only to the educators, to the entrepreneurs, and to the government of Canada, who is promoting economic growth through increasing trade relationship with Brazil, China, India, and so on. So this is a topic of great importance to us today. I would like to also say that York University is doing its share by exporting education to India and other countries, and as well as bringing many, many talented students to York University. So Thank you, President, for your insight and vision for York University. And also I thank all the board members and friends of York University for that. I also would like to thank the staff of this historic hotel for arranging doing such a superb job and serving us today. And also my thanks go to the board members of the Empire Club. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
I think we all know that Canada is blessed with many great academic leaders, policymakers, some of whom graced us with their presence here today. Dr. Sheldon Levy from Ryerson, my old friend David Agnew from Seneca, I believe Patrick Monahan, although I can't see him through the lights, and even some education policymakers. Oh, there he is right there. And Patrick is at my left elbow as well. And I just wanted to say that when we have an occasion like this and we have an opportunity to hear from somebody like Dr. Shoukri in an audience like this, it gives one great hope about the education future for Canada. Thank you very much, Dr. Shoukri, for speaking to us. I'd like to present you with a copy of our book, Who Said That?, a collection of great speeches in the club over the last 100 years. We publish a record every year. You'll be in one very soon. Finally, can I just offer you your attention to a list of upcoming events that you have on your chair there. We have Thursday on the 22nd, Laurel Broughton, the Minister of Education, at the King Eddie. On the 6th of December, David Onley, the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, also at the King Eddie. And finally, I'd like to thank Alpha Labs for their sponsor of our event today, and our media sponsor, the National Post, our internet and television sponsor, Rogers TV. We're very grateful to them all for their ongoing support. We are available on Facebook and Twitter and at empireclub.org. We have a brand new website coming up, which I hope you will have a look at and enjoy. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you again. This meeting is adjourned.